Linnaeus, if you are ready, please start.
Yes, teacher. I start. Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to my presentation. My topic that I choose for this mini webinar is education in ancient civilization. I really like this topic, and for that reason, I can present all of you uh, the education in ancient civilization. Let's continue, classmate. Thank you. Introduction. In ancient civilization, education was not universal as it is today. It was linked to social status, gender, and the role a person played in their society. Since the dawn of humanity, education has been the fundamental means of transmitting knowledge, values, and custom that allow for the continuity of culture. Although today we conceive of it as a universal right. In ancient civilization, education was reserved for a select few of people, scribes, priests, and state officials. Through the study of Greek cultures like Mesopotamia, China, and Egypt, we can understand how the first organized educational system emerged and what objective they pursue. Let's continue. Education in Egypt. They controlled character. Temples were centers of learning where priests and scribes were trained, responsible for preserving the secrets of hieroglyphic, like yourself in the screen. Children for privileged families began this kind of education around the age of 5 years in schools called houses of instruction. This kind of schools have a supervisor or a street teacher, and they learn to read, write, and perform some signature like arithmetic or mathematics, and through repetitive exercise. Let's continue. Education in Mesopotamia, land of the Sumerians, Akkadians, and Babylonians. Some of the first formal schools in this place emerged known as Eduba. The one purpose principal education was primarily administrative, to train competent scribes to work in temples, palace, and commerce. Let's continue. Education in China. China education developed with a different orientation, inspired by the teachings of Confucius. Its purpose was to form moral and virtuous citizens. Citizen, let's committed to no committed to daring harmony for respect for all for elders. During the Han Dynasty, the Taishu, it was the first imperial academy established in China. It prepared young men for civil service through a rigorous examination system. This kind of examination assess their knowledge of the Confucian teaching, which through Eric, music, history, and sometimes poetry. Let's continue. Come the essential for maintaining social order and transmitting cultural heritage. It is a one-purpose characteristic that three ancient civilizations have in common. Let's continue. Difference between of three civilizations. For example, in Mesopotamia and Egypt, education was an instrument, only the state and religion, only that. In the case of China, in addition to being a state run, it aimed for ethical and moral development. Let's continue. Conclusion. To conclude my presentation, I like to share this phrase with you. The education of the ancient was the transmission of culture and power. Ours ideally is the expansion of knowledge and equality. What do I mean by this? The study of education in ancient civilization show us that teaching has always been an act of cultural and social preservation. Although today we seek inclusive and critical education, we continue to inherit concepts born in those kind of societies, the school structure and the curriculum, and the last one, the role of the teacher have today. Thank you so much for all your attention in my presentation.
Okay, Linnaeus. Very well. Let's start going with the question. And I see Delmer, you have the hand up. Let's hear it.
Okay. If you call a student in a whole school for a day, which one would you choose and what would you like to learn, Dirk?
Classmate Delmer, could you repeat again the question, please?
Yes. If you call a student in a whole school for a day, which one would you choose and what would you like to learn there?
Okay, well, let me think. Personally, I choose two ancient civilization. First, I choose Greek school, such as Platon's Academy, to learn philosophy and debate about something like a soul, justice, and the universe. Maybe like physics, I don't know. And at the same time, I choose Chinese because I like so much its culture, and I would like to know about the Confucius teaching.
Okay, Yurani, you're next.
Okay, Linnaeus, do you think that today's education retains some of the spirit of ancient civilizations, or do you think we have lost that connection with that deep knowledge?
Well, it's a good question. Let me think. We retain some elements such as respect, for example, from Chinese education, and knowledge too, and the figure of the teacher. However, in many contexts, we have lost the sacred sense of knowledge and link the between education and ethics and the passion for learning, for the simple fact of growing as a human beings. I think.
Catherine, what's your question?
What value do you think dominate in the education of ancient civilizations? Obedience, wisdom, or spirituality, and why?
Let me, could you repeat again
Yes,
the
of
question,
course.
please?
Sorry. There are some words that are hard for me to pronounce, so I'm sorry. What value do you think
Mhm.
predominate in the education of ancient civilizations, and why?
Mhm. In many ancient civilizations, obedience was the key. It was only the key, especially in Egypt and China, too, where respect for authority and gods that they believed was fundamental. However, in Greece was the core of value with an emphasis on critical thinking and dialogue. In the case of medieval Islamic world, like Mesopotamia, spirituality and knowledge went hand in hand, as learning was considered an act of faith.
Okay, Paula, what about you?
Okay, I really think it's a very interesting and very complicated topic. So my question for you is, which of these civilizations do you think has the most advanced education model for its time? Egypt, Greece, China, or the medieval Islamic world?
In my personal opinion, I think the China, but in everything that I read and investigated, the medieval Islamic world most advanced because of its multidisciplinary approach. Science, philosophy, medicine, and work from many cultures were translated. In addition to that, libraries such as the House of Wisdom in Baghdad were centers of innovation for its ancient. However, it depends of each civilization because each was a pioneer of its contest.
And Isabel.
Thank you, teacher, and thank you, Linnaeus. My question is,
Mhm.
how would change the way of teaching today? So, if we adopt practices such as China exams or Greek method.
Can you repeat again the question, please?
Sure. Eh, how will we change the way of teaching today if we adopt practices like China exams or the Greek method?
Okay. Mm, if I think if we were to adopt the Chinese imperialism, like I said before in my presentation, we might encourage, but we would also run the risk of focusing too much on memorization. On the other hand, the Socratic method would encourage critical thinking, dialogue, and reflection, which would greatly enrich our current classroom today.
Thank you.
Okay, and I got mine too, and it is Linnaeus. Um, which of those civilizations do you think prepare the people? Okay, no. Which of these civilization did the best effort in preparing the people for their life context in general?
Teacher, bueno, in my opinion, I think China, because China prepared the people based on a moral aspect, like ethical values, another, ¿cómo se diría? In others aspect of for elders people. Besides of that, I think they take in account all that Confucius teaching brain and applies in their life.
Okay, okay, thank you, Inez. Now,
You're welcome, teacher.
for the feedback for you, okay, the presentation, I mean, in general, it had all the information. And maybe the only like mistake is not a mistake, is that at some points there were a lot of pictures and not so much like text that help to have an idea of what this picture represented. For example, I think that in the comparison between civilizations, you you could have used the picture, okay, but for example, in I remember the examples with other partner here, they made a table like with the differences. That could have been a good idea, so that because those pictures doesn't show like anything related to that. You know what I mean? So that could be something that you could have done better, maybe I could say. In the case of fluency, it was understandable and clear, but there is still work to do because there are like some nervousness, and it's normal, but there is still nervousness. Uh, some unnecessary pauses, or maybe the rhythm is a bit slowly compared with a more natural rhythm. It's not bad, but it can be improved. That's what I want to say. In the case of pronunciation, uh, be careful with the past, with the pronunciation of the past, because this is the problem that I have been talking about all this time, of reading them like it was Spanish, or like that, like linked, played, no, select está bien, inspired. All of those words are bad pronounced. It should have been linked, played, inspired. We need to work on that because that's a common problem. And the solution is simple, but we have to remember to do it, to pronounce them correctly. Besides of that, in the grammar, there were a few mistakes in the choice of words. I remember one that you said that education uh, was was only for a select few. You said, but select in that case, just like that, is the verb, es el verbo, seleccionar, elegir. But when we're talking about a description, in that case, it should have been a selected few, como un grupo selecto, seleccionado. So, simple mistakes that we have to be careful about. I mean, everything was understandable. We understand what you said, but work on that, especially in the pronunciation of past verbs, because it's a common problem that almost everyone almost everyone has experience in their life, but we need to correct it because it's something basic. One of the basic tenses, uno de los tiempos básicos. Toca corregirlo, ¿vale? And that's it. That's your correction. Let's stop the recording.
Thank you, teacher, for your feedback.